What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Wake and J College Football Show. Conference championship games are in the books. Playoff bracket is set. We're officially in the postseason. We're officially into bowl season. We do still have one more regular season game to go. I understand that, Army, Navy, but we're pretty much in the playoffs. We're pretty much in the bowl season. It is the postseason officially. A little bit of a shorter episode today just because there was only 4 conference games being played this weekend. I take that back. There was more than just 4 conference championship games this weekend. There's only going to be 4 that I'm going to talk about, though. And then we're going to talk playoff brackets, and then that's it. We're finished with the regular season officially. This next week, there is only going to be one show previewing Army, Navy, but then also just kind of doing a look back at the season, looking at my best and worst takes, season win totals, that sort of thing. And then following week, we'll get into previewing bowl games. We'll recap bowl games, that sort of thing. So only one episode this next week. Who knows? Maybe I'll cave and do 2, but planning on 1 as of right now. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into conference championship weekend. But before we do that, let's get a little high. All right, let's get into the championship games. We'll just go in chronological order and start with the Big 12 championship game. I mean, Arizona State and Iowa State, people were worried that Arizona State was going to miss their leading receiver, and I guess I get that. Why wouldn't you? You'd be nervous of that. I was hesitant. I still thought Arizona State would win. They didn't miss him at all. Sure, they missed him. They didn't need him. Let's just put it that way. They win 45-19. It was close early, I'll give them that. Early in the second quarter, it was tied 10-10. But by halftime, Arizona State was up 24-10, and by the fourth quarter, it was 45-10. It was just domination by Arizona State from start to finish. And Cam Skattebo continues to be a wrecking ball. No one wants to tackle him. 208 receiving and rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, and Sam Leavitt, absolute stud. Arizona State solidifies themselves into the playoff with that win. And maybe they don't go far. Maybe they lose right away. But the future is very bright for Arizona State. They're going to miss Cam Skattebo next year. I don't believe he has that extra year. They're going to miss him next year. It's going to be hard to replicate that. So they need to somehow replace him. But I think the future is bright for Arizona State. Absolutely the domination. And they're 11-1 with their starter, by the way. They have 2 losses this year, but one of those losses, Sam Leavitt wasn't playing. They have won 8 straight now with Sam Leavitt as their starter. Don't sleep on Arizona State. Just because they're in the Big 12 does not mean they're not a good team. They'll put up a fight against whoever they play. SEC championship game. Georgia, Texas. And man, this game, it was better than the Big 12 championship game because it was closer and I guess more competitive, but it was also pretty ugly at the same time. It was 6-3 at halftime, and Georgia squeaks out the win in overtime 22-19, but this was a defensive struggle the whole game. Georgia had a very bend, don't break defense. Texas would drive, stall, have to kick field goals, miss field goals, that sort of thing. But Georgia just struggled offensively that whole first half. It was not great. And then last play of the first half, or second to last play, I don't remember. Doesn't matter. No, it was the last play. Carson Beck gets strip sacked. Didn't look good. Out the rest of the game. Gunnar Stockton has to come in. And yes, the offense had a little more juice after that. And people are giving Gunnar Stockton credit for that. It's some of it that does go to him. Don't get me wrong. But throwing the ball, he was not much better than Carson Beck was. And he threw an interception, and that was an ugly interception. It was bad. It was very bad. The only difference is he is more of a run threat than Carson Beck is. And when you're Texas and you've been game plan for Beck, all of this, and then all of a sudden Beck's out and you got a quarterback who can scramble around a bit, they struggled. They struggled to adapt. It gave the offense a little more juice. So they did play better in that second half. I just think not planning for a quarterback who's not going to use his legs and then getting one that does, it's a little much sometimes. Now, Georgia only scored 22 points. It's not like they went off for like 40-something. Tough for Texas. Your best team that you've played on your schedule. You've played them twice and lost both times. Not great. But as we'll get into later, it didn't hurt them too terribly much. Big Ten championship game, Penn State, Oregon. And I could not have been more wrong about this game. I thought this would be dominated by both defenses. This would be a lower scoring game. And that could not be further from the truth. Both teams combined for nearly 1,000 yards of offense. And Georgia pulls off the win 45-37. Not even close to a low scoring game. Honestly, what killed Penn State? Turnovers. One thing was just the turnovers. Oregon didn't turn the ball over at all, and that's the difference in the game. Drew Aller threw 2 interceptions. One led to a very short field for Oregon to score a touchdown. And when you look at the ending score, they lost by 8 points, which is a touchdown and a 2-point conversion away. Second was very late in the game when you have the ball with a chance to drive and potentially score a touchdown, hit that 2-point conversion, and tie the game up and maybe go to overtime. But nope, threw an interception. Tough way to lose a game. James Franklin, I had faith in you. You fell short once again in a game against a top 5, top 10 team. I still feel good for Penn State moving forward. And honestly, when I look at we'll get into it, I like their path to the semis and possibly the national championship. We will see. I do think that they could win 1 or 2 playoff games. That one hurt. I thought they could do it. Oregon, I do feel a little nervous for them after this. They are still undefeated. It's hard to continue to go undefeated, especially since this year seems so crazy. Penn State was moving the ball on the ground and with little to no issue. 297 yards and 8.7 yards per carry. If Oregon plays a team with a deadly rush attack, it could get ugly. We'll get into that later. Clemson, SMU, ACC championship. Man, this one also hurt. Someone who has been backing SMU all year, someone who did not want to see Clemson get in the playoffs. This hurt a lot. Clemson 34, SMU 31. You could argue this game is lost on a couple of plays for SMU. You could argue it's the kick return late or that 56-5-4 whatever yard field goal that kicker nailed. I think if you had to put it down to one, it's that strip sack by Clemson on SMU's opening drive. It gave Clemson a short field, up 7-0 quick, and then you're down 24-7 at halftime, and you have to fight back in order to be in this game. Shout out for SMU for coming out in that second half with a fight. They shut down Clemson's offense finally in that second half. Now, granted, part of that first half struggle was they gave up a short field off of a turnover. But their offense came alive in that second half. It's unfortunate that it ended the way it did. But SMU proved they belong in the playoffs. Because they played Clemson close, I think because this also was, in everybody's eyes, their biggest test this season, I think that confirmed their spot in the playoffs. All right, college football playoff bracket. I waited to record until after it was released. I figured it just made sense. I did release this morning what I would have done if I were in complete control of the brackets. Now, my bracket came out slightly different than the committee's, obviously, because I would do things differently. But I'm not even going to say that the committee got it wrong necessarily. There's a few things that I would tweak, and I'll get into that. Oregon, Georgia, number 1 and number 2. I think that was kind of a given. I think everybody had that. I think that was to be expected, and there was no debate. I think a lot of people, and most people probably had it Boise 3, Arizona State 4. I think there's a small but loud group that wanted Arizona State as the 3, Boise as the 4. I was in that group. Either way, I get why they did it. I'll give it to them. Boise has the 3, Arizona State has the 4. Those 4 teams get a bye. When I look at those 4 teams and who I'm about to go through next, I like I think Oregon has the toughest draw, which we'll get into when it comes to those four. Arizona State, I don't hate their draw, if I'm being completely honest. I don't like Boise's, and Georgia's could be tough depending on the quarterback situation. Oregon has to take on the winner of the 9-8 game. Tennessee is at 9. Ohio State is at 8. So Ohio State is hosting Tennessee. And this could be bad for Ohio State because Ohio State might be broken. It might not be. We're not really sure. It's kind of a tough situation to get into. But one thing I do know is they are down their starting center and they are down their left tackle. And another thing I do know about Tennessee is they have a very good defense, specifically their defensive line. They have a deep defensive line. It's not like they have just one player or two players. No, they've got a deep defensive line. So that worries me for Ohio State. Tennessee's offense is going up against a very good Buckeye defense. So that could be a lower scoring game. Maybe give me the under in that one already. But I think Tennessee could beat Ohio State. It just depends on how broken is Ohio State. Nico Iamaleava, we've seen it all year. He started slow. He's been better these last few weeks, but he's also, which is so weird to see in a redshirt freshman quarterback, he's one of those players that he'll start a game rough or slow or off, and then he just gets better as the game goes on. And you do not usually see that with young quarterbacks. So I don't hate Tennessee's chances in this one. I don't. I think they very easily could win this game. And then they go to play Oregon, who we just saw let up nearly 300 yards rushing to Penn State. If you don't know this about Tennessee, they are a run-first team. If they can get the run game going against Oregon, and Tennessee has a very good defense, it could be a rough day for Oregon, and just like that, Tennessee's in the semis. I don't hate Tennessee's path. I really don't. And then they got to play Clemson, Texas, or Arizona State, and let's be honest, Clemson's offense is not moving the ball on Tennessee. Texas's offense is not going to be able to do anything against Tennessee's defense. In Arizona State, same. I don't think their defense is stopping Tennessee's offense. Tennessee, I don't mind their path. I really don't. I think it looks tough right off the bat because you're playing Ohio State, $20 million roster. You then have to go play Oregon, the undefeated Big Ten champion. And then after that, if you can get through those two, I like your chances a lot. I see a lot of Tennessee fans complaining. Tennessee has my favorite path so far. We got Indiana at the 10 spot, Notre Dame at the 7. So Notre Dame would be hosting Indiana, two in-state teams, and the winner would be facing Georgia. Honestly, I could see Indiana beating Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's obviously going to be favored in this one. And then that is a tough matchup for either team against Georgia. I think a healthy Georgia team can beat either team there. SMU, 11 seed, Penn State, the 6. I like Penn State in this one. I really do. Home field advantage. SMU's got to come to you. I think Penn State is a better team than SMU. And then the winner has to take on Boise, which if SMU has to take on Boise, I like SMU. If Penn State has to take on Boise, I like Penn State. I don't think Boise has a shot. Penn State might have a very easy, and mind you, it's not like Penn State's playing the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the teams they always lose to. This is SMU and Boise. I think Penn State and James Franklin can manage to get into the semis at least. And then we got Clemson at the 12 taking on Texas at the 5. Clemson could beat Texas. I'm not going to count them out. I think Texas's defense is good enough to shut down Clemson's offense, and Clemson's defense is not as good as it's been in years past. So I do think Texas wins this game. But if you told me that Clemson upset Texas, I wouldn't be all that shocked. Texas would then take on, or Clemson would then take on Arizona State. If it is Clemson, Arizona State has all the chance in the world to win that game. If it is Texas, makes me nervous. I think Texas would probably win, and then you're looking at Texas, Tennessee, probably. Then Penn State, I'll say Georgia. I think Georgia probably wins that game because Penn State just doesn't win those games under James Franklin. And with a Tennessee-Texas matchup, that would be a defensive struggle. I would probably lean Tennessee in that one. And then you got a Georgia-Tennessee national championship. That would be insane. I'd watch it. I wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm leaning. It would be a Tennessee-Georgia national championship. But Penn State's path to the semis, I think, is the easiest. I think Tennessee's path lines up matchup-wise, just based on their strengths and the two teams in front of them's weaknesses. I think it's the semis that are hard for them, for Penn State and Tennessee. We could be seeing a Texas-Georgia rematch for all I know. But yeah, that's the playoff bracket. It's broken. I'm going to get into that. There's at some point in the season, this offseason, where I want to get into rules I would like changed in college football. I obviously know that we are getting a brand new playoff format next year. I understand that. I still would get into what I would fix about this playoff bracket, because the fact that Oregon has, as the undefeated number one team, has to take on either Ohio State again or Tennessee is crazy, because that is a difficult matchup regardless. I mean, it's broken. It needs to be fixed. It's going to be different next year, so there's no point in fixing it. I'm still going to gripe. Betting recap from this weekend. I mean, it wasn't great. If you followed my Twitter posts, 5-7, not ideal, not great. I did hit the Army first drive touchdown plus 320, 330, something like that. That was nice. But of the 8 bets that I was leaning towards that I said on the last show going into this weekend, those went 3-5. So that was not great. I did go a little better this weekend than that, but not by much. Not a great end. I did decide that I was not going to be adding these to the total, which I'm glad I didn't, because yikes. Bowl season, I'm going to keep track of bowl season separate. It is going to be its own thing. I would be shocked if I can come out plus money just because it is so unpredictable. But time to get into my favorite segment. Dude, are you high? But before we do that, let's take a quick smoke break. Dude, are you high? There was not a lot to pick from this weekend just because not a lot of football being played. But then this morning, we were given a gift. Everybody's talk all morning. Everybody's excited. It's noon o'clock is when the bracket's supposed to come out. Really, it's more like almost noon 30 by at that point. But regardless, everybody's discussing all morning. Is it Alabama that gets left out? Do they value the brand or strength of schedule or whatever bullshit reason the SEC always comes up with? Or do they value making the conference championship game in SMU with 11-2 record, not a 9-3 record, and this and that? And then Brett McMurphy decides at 11:59 Eastern, 1 minute before the show is supposed to start, 20-ish minutes before it actually gets released, this douche has to go on Twitter and say, it has been reported that Alabama is out, SMU is in, sources have told Action News Network, or whatever the fuck he works for. Dude, are you high? Let everybody have fun. Why do you have to spoil it for everyone? Just let us have this. You could have waited. You didn't have to be a douche and break it like that. I know you can't help it. That's who you are because you like to break news. Dude, are you high? Read the room. We didn't want that. We didn't ask for that. You didn't need to give it to us. It's just ridiculous. I hated it. I know everybody else did. I saw a lot of people complaining about it. Just completely self-absorbed, does not care. Thank you all for joining me. I'm sad to see the regular season come to the end, but I am excited for bowl season, and I'm even more excited for the playoff. A lot of good games still coming up for us. Like I said, just one episode this next week, and then we'll get back to 2 a week once bowl season actually gets underway. But yeah, I'll talk to you guys on Thursday.